morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Michael Mandillo, and I'm president of First Service Residential, and I welcome all of our attendees today for our bi-weekly webinar that we have been doing for over a year now. This is actually our 56th webinar that we have put out there for what I'll say knowledge base and information and best practice sharing. Today, Friday, April 30th, is the close of April. So a lot going on in our industry, and we have listeners from all over the United States and all different types of product lines that you are community leaders or board member leaders of, from homeowners associations, condos, mid-rise, high-rises, lifestyle communities, age-restricted, homeowners associations of all the above. And what we try to do is our best is every 2 weeks we do look at what we see as trending throughout the First Service residential communities that we manage. As I've said many times, we do manage about 8,400 communities and all different product lines that consist of about 1.7 million homes. So we do have a great opportunity to really see what might be some consistent challenges or areas that we should share those best practices. A lot of times these sessions are really a refresher for our listeners, and we'll pick up some nuggets. I always encourage that you jot down anything you hear. You are free to email and put questions on the question box or the go-to webinar box during the session. And at the end, we do have a Q&A that we will get to and hopefully get to all your questions. But by any means, if something arises over the weekend or next week, please feel free to reach out to us. We are absolutely here to help and do our best in guidance and sharing. Again, we do have communities and leaders on the calls that are obviously managed by our First Service residential team, and others we have board members and community leaders that are actually managed by other management companies. We welcome all. We want to do our best to kind of pay forward, if you will, and that is something that we keep striving for. Topic this week is virtual meetings. Now, we're 12, 13 months into this pandemic, so on one side we can all say that we have great expertise by getting thrown into the fire and dealing with it, and but this is a 2.0 version, so super important to leverage and value those virtual type meetings to really get your message out and expand your reach to the communities that you lead in. We have three tremendous speakers that are going to give some insight on certain areas of why video over teleconferencing or in person, comparison of platforms, virtual meeting etiquette. Very big one, virtual meeting etiquette, because a lot of people don't realize that there is a big difference when you're face-to-face in the body language and you can wait for applause than to when you're speaking in a virtual meeting and people speaking over each other is also a bit of a challenge with that. So what I would suggest is listen up, take down any notes. Again, please feel free on the question box to put in any of those questions, and we'll come back to the Q&A when we do that. And with that, I will pass it over to Jared, who will kick this off for the Virtual Meetings 2.0. Jared, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Michael. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jared Hendrickson. I am a community manager with First Service Residential. I've been with the company for 3 years now, and I've been in the industry going on 6 years. I'm going to be going over some of the benefits of video conferencing, both in-person meetings and teleconferencing. Starting with in-person meetings, Video conferencing improves availability and flexibility over in-person meetings. It eliminates the need for everyone to be in one physical location all at the same time. Meetings can be scheduled with less lead time or put together quickly if an immediate need for a meeting rises. Board members who may be out of town can participate from a distance. Video conferencing has been really crucial during the pandemic, allowing boards to conduct association business without having to be physically together. Video conferencing also reduces travel expenses and meeting costs. With proliferation of video conferencing platforms over the past couple of years, costs of these platforms has decreased and become extremely affordable. Costs associated with travel, whether it's boards needing to get together across town or a non-local vendor presenting an estimate, answering questions on a product, can be eliminated through video conferencing. And because of the elimination of time needed for travel, more time can be spent on meeting preparation or other business. Managers being able to optimize time by solving issues remotely benefits community with the increase in time efficiency. A number of associations we manage like to record certain meetings or presentations, either for our archival purposes or for board members who are not able to be in attendance or something similar. Most modern day video conferencing software allows for recording essentially with the push of a button. This is great for, again, archival or allowing board members or maybe community members that weren't able to be in attendance for the original presentation. Video conferencing has a lot of benefits over normal teleconferences. I think at the beginning of this pandemic, a lot of associations struggled with how to conduct business of the association as efficiently as possible, and a lot went and defaulted to teleconferences because it was something that they were used to. Obviously, over time, I think a lot more people have become familiar with video conferencing and realize the benefits of having the video presentation style as well as the audio. Video conferencing increases participation over teleconferencing because participants involved in video conferences tend to be more engaged and participate more in the meeting compared to a normal audio-only teleconference. The feel of a teleconference is much more akin to an in-person meeting compared to an audio-only solution. This makes it more engaging and more personal. It increases communication and allows for nonverbal communication, visual cues that aren't possible with audio-only solutions. Communication isn't just about what is said or how it's said. Body language plays a very important role in how a message is received by the listener, and this is transferable through a video conference. Presenter is able to make what they call virtual eye contact with participants, and this gives an air of more transparency and allows for a better style of communication. It also allows for a superior presentation. Documents can be displayed and highlighted right on screen, which means that everyone involved in the meeting is looking at the same piece of information. This reduces confusion and increases efficiency. A community that we manage had just elected 3 new board members in November at an annual meeting, which just so happened to be in the midst of budget season. With no ability to get together due to the pandemic, they were able to conduct a video conference where the draft budget and relevant financial information was displayed on screen, so the whole board was able to work together and collaborate. New board members were able to ask questions directly and more efficiently. And because of the collaborative effort, they were able to complete the budget successfully without the need of multiple meetings. And I think everybody involved was allowed to, more direct input and came away with a better understanding of the budgeting process, which is really key for their role and their fiduciary responsibility. Video conferencing also allows for much better moderation. If you're doing a video conference over an audio conference for an annual meeting per se, you have the ability to mute participants in the meeting as needed. You have better control over the people involved in the meeting. It's especially helpful for meetings where a large number of participants are involved. I think we've all had those teleconferences where people start talking over each other and it gets a little difficult to understand the presenter. Video conferencing allows for better control of those situations. It also allows for reports to be run on who participated in the call. If you've got, let's say 100 participants, you can run a report and get the information of who participated in that call much easier. Moderation of controlling who is speaking and who is shown on screen is also extremely helpful in video conferencing. And I think that's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to Walter.
Thank you, Jared. Hey, good morning, everyone. As Michael mentioned earlier, I'm Walter Christian, the Regional Technical Director with First Service Residential. I've been with the company for 11 years now, and I have worked in a technical capacity for real estate-related companies for 25 plus years. I possess a BBA in Computer Information Systems, as well as a Master's of Science in Management Information Systems. And I hope everyone's been staying safe and doing the best they can with respect to the pandemic for not only themselves, but for society as a whole. And let's jump into the comparison of platforms. So when it comes to video conferencing, there are 4 platforms that are really running away in terms of the technology and the acceptance and adoption of use. And those 4 platforms are WebEx, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet. Now, I'm going to refer to those platforms as the big 4. For those of you that are Gartner fans, 3 of those 4 are in the top right quadrant in terms of being the market leaders. And one of them, Google Meet, is what's being viewed as a rising competitor. So all 4 platforms are very similar. They all give you the ability to chat. They all give you the ability to collaborate during the meeting. They possess the ability to screen share, assign roles within the meeting, and you can pass the role back and forth of who is the host. They also have the ability to create breakout rooms, as well as the modern functionality which is required, the ability to function on a mobile device. Those are critical functions, and all 4 of them have that. Now, there's certain things that really, stand out within one platform over the other, and those differentiators are really critical when it comes to making determinations on which platform is best for you to use in a particular meeting. Now, what I tend to see with property management companies, board members, and the owners within a community is that they all tend to use one single platform and just stick with that platform. And you know what? That's fine in terms of comfort, but that doesn't mean that each platform is right for each scenario. So for instance, Microsoft Teams is built for a content-rich experience, And what I mean by that is Teams is designed for sharing documents, sharing PowerPoint, sharing PDFs, sharing Word documents. It is meant for that environment. It's meant for a collaborative environment where you are going to be sharing content and working on content in a group setting. That is where Teams really separates itself. WebEx and Zoom, they separate themselves in terms of the capacity that they can hold in a meeting. So, for instance, Google Meet's capacity is only 100. Teams is at, I want to say they're up to 300. That number might be 250, but still, that's still a small group. Both WebEx and Zoom have the ability to go well over 1,000 participants. And in some cases, depending on which version of the platforms you have, you can go as high as 10,000 participants. WebEx, again, it's a phenomenal platform, specifically when you're doing something from a educational standpoint in terms of sharing content with a large group of people when you want them to understand something that you have that you want to present. It's not really great in terms of being interactive, but great for sharing content and pushing information forward to a group. Google Meet is a phenomenal platform, but it is also designed for academia. They're trying to expand their reach, but right now it's meant for academia. It's meant for a collaborative setting, one in which an instructor-led setting where the instructor has content, where students are using the content, commenting on the content, building on the content. It's not really meant for something like a webinar. It's not really meant for an annual meeting. If you're in a board meeting or a committee meeting where you're strategizing, Google Meet is fine for that, but it's not really meant for, the large scale or enterprise settings. Microsoft Teams has a phenomenal feature of closed captioning built into it. So for instance, if we were using Microsoft Teams for this webinar, everything that I say will come across the bottom of the screen, whether I'm using words that are actual words, something that's in the lexicon, or I'm making up words like, I'm Zooming with this person, I'm WebExing with this person. It will take it, interpret it, and put it on the screen, which is an incredible feature that's natively built into the platform. And Teams is also pretty good when it comes to streaming content, which most of the web video conferencing platforms, although they can show your face, they're not really great at, using media and sharing media. Zoom also does a pretty decent job on that front as well. We can jump to the next slide. I would be completely out of line if I didn't mention security. And when it comes to security, the first thing I'll say is this. A lot of us watch the news, we read newspapers, we read articles. When it comes to security, Zoom's track record is completely abysmal. It just began its use of end-to-end encryption for their meetings, this month. The real challenge, and I'm saying their track record's abysmal, Zoom is actually making a great effort to rectify their security holes, but in their defense, the platform itself was designed for residential use. It wasn't really meant for commercial use, so they weren't really anticipating going from 10 million users to 300 million users in a 45-day period. So in their defense, they're doing a pretty decent job in closing those holes, but the fact remains those holes were open and they weren't built for this. WebEx and Microsoft Teams, they take security incredibly serious, and that was at the paramount of their design when it comes to their platforms. Their intent was to build a secure environment, and they will not skimp on security in any way, shape, or form. That is not what those platforms do. Google Meet, it's kind of liberal in terms of security, And I say liberal to mean that, yes, they take security seriously, but not at the level in which a Cisco or a Microsoft would take security. So be conscientious about that when using the platforms. At the same time, as I said, Zoom is making a great effort. Google is working on the platform, but I think Google is going to settle into the academia space as their sweet spot and still be used in some corporate scenarios for people who use the Google Suite platform. So in a quick review, I put a chart together where I rank the platforms based on each criteria on the left-hand column. One meaning it's the best out of the 4 platforms, and I just rank them 1 to 4 in each. So when it comes to academia, Google Meet, far and away the best platform for academia. I ranked Zoom second best, and Teams is the worst in this category, yet Teams is making great strides when it comes to academia. For nonprofit, Google Meet is probably the best platform in part because of its pricing. So if you have a 501c, Google Meet is a very attractive platform. For the small and large enterprise business, Microsoft far and away the best platform to use in that, in part because of the ability to share rich content on the platform. Incredibly robust in that regard. When it comes to personal use, I think Zoom is far and away the best product for personal use. I myself use Zoom when it comes to happy hours and things of that nature, all in on it. For a small group meeting, so like a board meeting or committee meeting, Teams, far and away the best platform to use for that. And again, it's all because Teams is built for collaborative settings. You just can't beat it when it comes to that. If I have a large group, something like this webinar, WebEx is the right platform for you. It's incredibly secure, incredibly robust, and built for this type of scenario. When it comes to training as well as security, again, the nod goes to WebEx. Again, they invest, and they being Cisco, they invest in security, and they built this platform for training. It is meant for this type of scenario. So that's really the long and short of it. And again, a couple quick notes with respect to the platforms itself. You know, WebEx and Zoom, great for the large scale meetings. Team, perfect for collaborative efforts. Google Meet, you want that in academia. If you have an interactive group meeting, and I say interactive to mean you have multiple people speaking, going back and forth, and you want people to look good on video, Zoom is hands down the way to go. It is totally designed for interactive meetings, much more so than any type of content that you're going to share in any type of meeting or setting. But if you're going to have a annual meeting, I would definitely say WebEx is the way to go. Board meeting, committee meetings, Teams is probably your best choice. And that will conclude my summary on the virtual meeting platforms. And I'm going to pass it over to Jennifer so she can discuss virtual meeting etiquette. Thank you for your time, everyone. Jennifer, it's all yours.
Thank you, Walter, for that comparison of platforms. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Bennett. I'm a portfolio manager with First Service Residential. I've been with First Service Residential for over 10 months, and I have over 15 years of experience managing condominiums, cooperatives, and homeowners associations. Today, I'm going to give you some friendly reminders about virtual meeting etiquette. For virtual meetings, you want to treat them as if you were meeting in person. Whenever possible, use the video option. I know in the beginning of this pandemic, when we all rushed to online meetings, there was a lot of difficulties with how to use the camera, the audio, but now more and more people want to see the faces of the people in the meeting so they can read the body language. So it's important, if you have the option, to go ahead and use the video option. You want to mute upon entering the meeting and when you're not speaking. If you were in a live in-person meeting, you wouldn't come in the door screaming, hi, anything like that. You would come in kind of calm, take your seat, and then talk to your fellow residents and owners. You want to dress to present the image you want others to perceive you as. With online meetings, we've all seen it where someone may have not brushed their hair or is still in their pajamas in the morning, in the evening, maybe getting the kids ready for bed or whatever it may be, but you want to dress to convey the image you want others to see. You want to limit your distractions. We've all been on meetings where, whether it be a significant other, roommates, children, pets is my big thing. My dogs love to join my virtual meetings. And those are distractions not only to you, but to other participants. So you want to go ahead and try to limit those. Find a quiet place in your home to conduct the meeting. Preparing for technical challenges. We've all experienced the issues of someone not being able to join, not being able to get their audio working. So it's important to be prepared for those. You want to test your connections before the meeting. I always try to get participants to join at least 5 minutes before the meeting is to start, so we can make sure everything's ready to go when the meeting is scheduled to begin. You want to be prepared to assist those. I recently had a meeting where a board member could not get his audio to work. We could all see him on camera, but we could not hear a word he said, so we had to help him work around that. You want to have the call-in number if the platform you're using allows participants to dial in, because some people will have issues, whether it be their Wi-Fi or computer issues. Be able to give them that number very quickly so they can join the online meeting. Setting the expectations for board members and participants, to me, is very important. You want to review the process of how the meeting is going to flow with all attendees before the meeting is called to order. Make sure that all attendees are able to see an agenda before the meeting, and if possible, display it during the meeting so that all of them are prepared and they know the expectations. With online meetings, for me personally, I've seen more and more people forget that it's an actual board meeting and not wanting to follow the agenda. So setting those expectations allows everyone to be aware of how the meeting is going to go. Appointing an online meeting monitor. In the beginning, I think 99.9% of us never even thought of this. And as we continue down this path of more and more meetings online, it's very important. The online meeting monitor should be someone who is not expected to be actively engaged in the meeting. This online meeting monitor is going to allow participants to enter if there's a waiting room. They're going to monitor the chat and alert the board or the committee chair or the manager that there's a question that maybe they've missed or a comment that needs to be addressed. They're also going to assist in muting participants as needed. Not that we like to mute people during any meeting, but sometimes it is appropriate that we need to ask someone, we're going to have to mute you. This is a board meeting, and we do need to take care of the association's business. Being prepared to deal with unruly participants. Here recently, I've noticed an uptick in residents who are failing to remember this is an association business meeting. The board is holding this meeting to deal with the association's business, approve contracts, address resident concerns, and anyone in the industry and as board members and active owners in the community, the 3 items that get everyone upset are assessments, pets, and parking. And as we move forward with these online meetings and when those subjects come up, we are experiencing a little uptick in some unruly participants. So it's important to have a plan in place before the meeting If the building manager or site manager or even a board member is aware that there may be someone that plans on attending that is going to be disruptive, it's best to go ahead and discuss that before the meeting starts and put a plan in place to address that. It's important to remind the participants, again, that this is an association business meeting and that you respectfully request they mute themselves and that you'll give them an opportunity to speak at the appropriate time. If that person fails to listen to your kind reminders, it's important to review the protocols for closing a meeting. Closing an online meeting is just the same as closing an in-person meeting, and it's important that the board and management are aware of the process of doing that. So you could speak to your association's attorney, review any local state laws regarding closed meetings. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Michael, who will give us our conclusion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jennifer and Jared and Walter. Again, great topic. Obviously, being in the thrown into the world of virtual meetings over the past 13 months. But I think as we continue in this passion and approach, even while we start to get out of the intensity that we saw over the last 12 months, I think what you're going to see is we're going to have to really fine tune these virtual kind of meetings. So hopefully they were very, very helpful. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Eileen Jablonski, who is our Vice President of Communication at First Service Residential, who is going to take some of the questions that you all were shooting over to us in the question box. And please feel free to continue to shoot those questions. And our panel will hopefully be able to answer to the best of our ability those questions. So Eileen, I will pass it over to you.
Great, thank you, Michael. Our first question goes to Walter. Could you talk to us a little bit about costs?
Sure, Eileen. Thank you very much. And for the person who asked that question, the pricing of the platforms is very similar on an individual level. The pricing scheme changes on corporate levels. I'll put it to you this way. Zoom is very inexpensive and cost-effective for an individual. What we arm our associates with, we give them access to both Microsoft Teams as well as Cisco WebEx to use for our communities at their request. The only challenge is our managers must be the host of the meeting. We can't pass that right of hosting the meeting on to any of the board members or committee members. But in terms of pricing, they're very similar on the individual level, where I think Zoom might be the easiest one from a billing perspective because they'll go month to month. WebEx will allow month to month now, but Microsoft Teams you have to purchase through a corporate perspective. And it seems to be, it may be a little more than the other three platforms in general terms. Back to you, Eileen.
Thank you, Walter. Our next question goes to Jared. Can video conferencing be used together with in-person meetings?
Thanks, Eileen. And thank you to whoever asked that question. Yes, absolutely. We've seen this put together in a few different situations. The one that comes to mind was an annual meeting where the board had put a camera and connected it to, in this case, it was Zoom, and allowed homeowners to participate or at least view the annual meeting if they were not able to attend. Well, those who are in attendance were able to directly participate in the meeting. It's not necessarily an optimal situation, but it does work, and it allows for those participants who might not be able to attend in person to at least engage with their community and their board of directors.
Thank you, Jared. Jennifer, the next question goes out to you. As online meetings can be less structured, how do you suggest the board stick to the agenda?
Thank you, Eileen. My suggestion in what we use in a lot of the associations I currently manage is, again, we display the agenda on the screen if it's available through the platform they're using, and the board president will stick to that. We kind of prep the board president and say, okay, and we go through, how much time we expect each item to take, and just reminding the residents and owners that are present for that meeting that, it is an association meeting and that open forum. I have several associations that allow 2 open forums, one before the business and one after the association's business. And we just remind them that that is when they'll be able to speak and the board will address their issue or concern.
Great solution. Thank you. Walter, next question goes to you. Different platforms seem to be based on the board and the initiator. Which is the easiest for the user who is unfamiliar with any of these platforms?
Well, thanks, Eileen. So first thing I'll say when it comes to that is all 4 platforms work incredibly well, specifically on mobile devices. They also have simple add-ins that work on most computers. So as long as your computer is purchased within, let's say, the last 6-7 years, you should have no problem connecting to any meeting on any of the 4 platforms. The one caveat I will say is this: if you're hosting a meeting, specifically if you're hosting a very large meeting on any one of the platforms, you want to have a beefier computer so you can sustain the amount of people coming in and the video content, because the burden of the meeting actually falls on the host. So just be cognizant of that when hosting or participating in any meeting. The burden really falls on the host. And that's probably the quickest and easiest, not too deep in the technical weeds answer I can give you on that front.
Thank you. Jennifer, how do we call on people? Can the board members have a back-to-back conversation, or does it have to be weighted to call on?
This is where the online meeting monitor would come into place. And if it's during open session, I ask those monitors to call on the people that have put into the chat that they would like to speak or they've issued a comment. The other option on some of the platforms, participants can raise their hands, and then the board or the chair of that committee will call on that person. And I'm sorry, the last part of the question?
Just looking. No, I think you covered the question. I think
Okay.
we're good.
All right.
Thank
you,
Jennifer. No problem. Jared, next question goes out to you. What is the best way to schedule video conference meetings?
Sure. With all these solutions, they typically generate when you are putting the meeting together through the software. They'll generate basically a script that you can copy right into your email or onto your calendar of choice and share it with your participants that way. I would say, though, what we've run into specifically with Zoom is I think they almost give too many options as far as ways to call in and different numbers. If this is going out to a large group, I would take a look at that and possibly pare it down to a smaller set of options as far as call-in numbers specifically, because they'll even give you out-of-country numbers and things like that. So just know your targeted audience for who it's going out to. Now, if it's something that you're just sharing with, let's say, a board of directors, and it's a small group meeting, really you just need to send the link to join the video conference. That's really all that's needed. Or if you are doing a call-in with the video conference, just the call-in number as well. But like I said, you really do want to pare that down a little bit so it's not as confusing to your target audience.
Super, thank you. And our last question goes to Walter. When we share a document on Zoom, can the members still see everyone and the document being shared, or does it cover the entire screen, such as this webinar?
Thanks for the question, Eileen. So short answer is with Zoom, it does take up the screen. It's on the participant to make a change in the gallery view in order to see the video of the people who are leveraging video as well as the content. So it's really the layout on the participant side. Now, there's certain scenarios where the host can control the layout and say, hey, I want to share my screen, but I also want a side panel of video to be displayed on everyone's screen, but the participant has the ability to override that and change that view as well.
Great, and thank you. Thank you, Walter, as well as Jared and Jennifer. Appreciate all your time. Thank you all, as always, for your commitment to your communities, your commitment to the residents, and also your commitment for a growth mindset. We are very fortunate that we work with such wonderful board members and community leaders, but most importantly, the collaboration that goes with it. So I continue to encourage you that as we grow in this virtual world, which will only become more and more as time goes on, it is important that we are open to it and we adjust and we see on best practices on how we can move forward. But also, as always, stay healthy, stay safe, and we thank you for your commitment and your involvement. And have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody.